I hope that was useful. I hope that you found that to be a blessing. Look, it's one of those things where you have to say, when you look in the mirror, you say, I've seen the enemy, and it's me. You need to own what you need to own and stop blaming outside, my parents, it's their fault. My kids, it's their fault. My friends or my job, where I grew up, my neighborhood, the way I was raised, the church I started in, whatever. Stop blaming everything. You can change everything starting right now. You can. It all starts with what? A different thought. Just the thought that you can. And then when you start attaching desire, in other words, believing that you can, having a desire to make it so. See, a lot of times we don't add enough desire because we just don't believe it's possible. If you don't believe it's possible, why would you desire? Well, it's not going to happen anyway, so why should I even get my heart into it? Oh, we'll stick that in the afterburn. You know why you don't desire? Because you don't believe it's possible. You got to work on that belief. He shows you so many things that otherwise would be impossible if you didn't know they actually happened. You can read about them. You can look at your own life. You can look at other people's lives that have had things that seem impossible happen. So what do you need to see and know and experience to know that just because you don't believe it doesn't mean it can't happen? So you might as well believe it, because if he says it, it's possible. And if it's possible, it's only going to happen if you believe it and put your desire behind it. So you got a belief problem. What did Yeshua say? When I return, am I going to find belief? Am I going to find people who actually believe? See, Christians want to think that that's find people who believe in me. No. How about just having belief, period? Belief to trust the commandments, the belief in Messiah, the belief to understand his role, belief in the Creator, just a belief that what they say, if we do it, will accomplish what they say it will accomplish. Do you believe it, though? Do you trust it? Have you embraced it? That's emunah. Okay, emunah is a full trust and belief that Yahweh's fully in charge and everything happens that happens to serve his purposes in some way. But that doesn't work if you don't have the belief part. Emunah is fully embracing what it means to believe, to trust, to know something that otherwise you would never have come to. How many of you have ever done anything that you never thought you could do? But then eventually you did it. And you thought, wow, I didn't think I could do that. So why doesn't that inspire you to do other things you didn't think you could do? If you need inspiration, go online and look for 8 billion stories of people that accomplished things they never thought they could do. They've got wonderful, inspiring books, stories, and articles everywhere about people in their lives who did things they never thought they could do, but they put their desire and their belief into action. But it started with the thought. The thought is, I can do this. Can you read your scriptures and all the things that Yahweh requires of you? Can you start with the thought, I can do this? I can do what he said? I can stop doing what he said to not do? Can you believe that? Can you really believe that? All right, so this is the afterburn part. This is where we go ahead and take comments or questions from the congregation and those on the live stream. If you're on live stream and type anything in, Robert can read it out loud. We do ask that you keep it to the teaching of today. If I did touch on anything peripherally that is not exactly about the teaching, I may tell you that I'll cover that either privately or at another time. So don't be offended if I choose not to answer your question. We want to try to keep it focused on this teaching. What are you thinking? And especially the things we talked about today.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment personally that when you made the statement there toward the end about your character and growth and stuff like that, it made me think of just how much more I appreciate the military way of building people up. Because you said sometimes when you're being corrected, that's not when you want to thank somebody. Nobody appreciates being corrected. In the military, oftentimes when you're being corrected, it also involves physical exertion. So while I'm correcting you, do some push-ups, do some sit-ups, do run in place. You can't do any of that, fine. Just hold your hands out to the side. Just stand there and hold the hands out to the side while I correct you. As the burn starts entering your shoulders, Then they want you to recite to them, thank you for forcing the pain forcing the weakness from my body. Thank you for making me stronger.
Right.
You're forcing the weakness from my body because the pain is just weakness leaving. So that just made me think of that, is that, yeah, nobody appreciates correction. They make you appreciate correction. This is what's going to make you into what you need to be.
And also, you're getting stronger because you're doing sit-ups or push-ups in that particular case. So, you're being strengthened in some other way. I remember in karate class many, many, many years ago, the teacher had a policy of if you made a mistake, okay, if he said to go do a certain pattern of punches and kicks and somehow you made a mistake, you dropped down and you did 20 push-ups. Well, it got to the point where it was nothing to do 20 push-ups. I mean, the first time it was a little tough. And then especially when you're already working out and doing other things and you were tired, it got to the point actually where what he had us doing, and he was smart enough to catch us, what he had us doing was so tiring, we would drop down to do push-ups as a break, pretending we had made a mistake. And that's when he would look at you and go, excused. And he would excuse the punishment so you'd have to get back up and do the thing because he knew we were trying to get away from dying doing whatever he had us doing. And we're like, because I'd rather sit and because 20 push-ups was less exerting than what he had us doing. Not because it was so easy to do push-ups, because we've been doing it every time you make, in the beginning you make a lot of mistakes. So what it does it makes you stronger. Okay, so the punishment, as he said, can actually make you stronger, can help build you in some way. But sometimes you might end up needing stronger and stronger punishment because after all, the punishment no longer is a punishment. Because after all, at some point, we were actually desiring to do the push-ups instead of whatever he had us doing. Because it was easier. You can't, the punishment can't stay so easy so that it's so light that it's not enough to discourage you from doing the thing you shouldn't be doing. So he has to increase it. All right, Tricia, go ahead.
But a few thoughts that, if we can put this together. So having the right attitude, the right desires, having that belief, and taking that to go forward in the Creator, having emunah and allowing Yahweh to accomplish it. How do we take that and not add the striving to it, and so that we can be content in all things, so that the power of being still is knowing that He is Yahweh? How do we take that and not strive in the midst of it?
Okay, all right. Did everybody catch that question? All right, so this is one of those sort of Christian thoughts that's still in everybody's head who's dealing with this striving thing, all right? Striving is the effort you make that's on wicked thoughts. In other words, vain effort and exertion towards something that'll lead in nothing. Putting all of your strength and might into something that's Yahweh is not striving. You see, but Christianity would convince you that effort is striving. But He wants you to do something with all your strength, with all your might, with all your being. That's effort. That's right effort. So that's not striving. Striving is contentious. Let's think of it that way. It's against the stream. It's trying to swim against the stream. He wants you to go this way, but you want to go that way. It's like trying to go, constantly try to go down the up escalator or up the down escalator. You're striving. Why are you trying to go against what the thing is designed to do? Now, that's different than telling you to go walk up the stairs. You want to go up, and so walking up the stairs takes an effort. You're striving if you're choosing a way to get up the stairs that's wrong, like going up against the down escalator. That's striving. That's using a thought that's wasteful and a vain effort, and there's no point to it. Okay? When you're thinking it's on your own strength, that's striving. When you're not giving Him the right credit, that's striving. When you're doing something you shouldn't be doing, that's all striving. Effort in itself is not striving from the scriptural point of view when it talks about not to be striving. Does that make sense to everybody? Don't confuse effort, which Christianity sort of demonizes, with being somehow wrong. Effort is not striving in itself, although there's a lot of effort in striving. But it's the kind of effort that's connected to a wicked thought, a thought that is something that's going to be vain, useless, or end up leading to nothing or just trouble. Making sense? Okay. Now, that's not to say that you can't decide, I want to strengthen my legs, and I see an opportunity to try to walk up a down escalator as something that might help that. That's different. The goal there wasn't to get to the top. The goal was to exercise your legs. You see the difference? But if your goal is to get to the top and you want to do it your way, and let's say the guidance and the instruction was to go take the elevator or to walk up the staircase, but no, I want to do it my way, then you know what? I've had children, my children, decide to do silly things like that. And guess what? Generally, they end up tripping, falling, or hurting themselves when I told them not to do it. But they were doing it because they wanted to strive to do it their way. I'm going to do it my way. The result was going to be the right result in some ways, meaning ending up at the top. But if the instruction says the way to get there is over here on the left and you want to go on the right, now you're not doing it correctly. Now you got the problem. That's your striving. When you want to do it your way and not do it his way. Even if it's a right goal. The goal may be to get to the top. But there's a right way to get to the top. All right? Look, you get hungry, and so you want to eat something. Well, there's a right way to put stuff in your stomach and the wrong things to put in your stomach. Now, you can eat almost anything and fix the problem of being hungry. But you can eat things that are right and things that are wrong. And so when you go to do it, you know, what's right in your own mind, that's striving, so to speak. I'm going to do it my way. The striving is about doing it my way, not his way. So in other words, it's an effort. This goes back to wicked thoughts. We strive when we take the wicked thoughts and we apply desire to it. The action is striving. Okay? When we're going to end up with vain effort or exertion, it's going to end up in nothingness or trouble. That's what striving leads to. So even if you're going to end up in the right place, you might end up in trouble. If it's striving that ends up in nothingness or in the wrong place, well, then you were wrong and the whole thing was wrong. So sometimes we're wrong in how we're trying to get to the right place. Sometimes we're just wrong trying to go to the wrong place. So we could be wrong in either way. Because you could be trying to get to the right place, but do it the wrong way. You're still doing it wrong.
I just wanted to make a statement on a little bit of experience I had. If anybody thinks that Yahweh cannot put them where he wants them, I'm a good example, because I lived in Florida for quite a bit of my life, and I was not living the way I should, although I knew what was right. So I could hear, I just knew that Yahweh wanted me to do something different, but I wasn't.
Right.
So he sends a guy down to Florida fishing, and I just happened to meet him, and about 6 months later, I'm up here married to him. And for the almost first 2 years of my life, I would get up in the morning and I would say, what am I doing here? It wasn't anything I would have done. I would never have thought I would have married him. I just couldn't figure out what it was I was doing here. So one night, Yahweh showed me. He sent me on my back porch in the freezing cold, staying out there. I was praying, and then he told me that I want you to follow my ways. I want you to do what I want you to do. And from there on, I've been doing it. And I've been married to this guy 26 years, so it wasn't just... So he can put you where he wants you to be if he wants you there bad enough.
Amen. Amen. He's going to put you in a place where the opportunity's there. Now, of course, you could have chosen not to hear that. Or I should say not to receive that. But you received it. So you said from that point forward, you started doing things differently. But the point is, he puts you in a place where the opportunity is to do all the things that he wants you to do, whether you are going to be willing to recognize it and then take action upon it, that's a whole different thing. Shira.
Thank you for a very penetrating message, Rabbi Steve. I am going to make a confession. I have had a struggle going on in my heart for a long time, and I think I'm finally ready to talk about it. And that is, I was brought up as a youngster very, very strict. We were not allowed to go to movies. We were not allowed to wear our skirts halfway above our calf. We were not allowed to drink a drop of alcohol, all that. I don't know if that's affecting me, but I'm struggling. How do I walk loving Yahweh with all my heart, all my strength, all my mind, all my resources, and still have some fun once in a while. Would Yeshua, living today, would he have gone to a movie? Would he have gone out and spent money on eating out when there was food at home and the money could have gone to the poor? Do you see what I'm saying? There's a lot of struggles that I struggle with, even while I'm enjoying myself and having fun. There's something going on in the back of my mind. Is this really okay? Is this really giving him 100%? Can I sit down and do a word puzzle instead of studying scripture or listening to Messianic music? Have I taken that moment and snatched that away from Yahweh?
Okay, excellent question. All right, so Yeshua said, I came so that your joy might be more complete. So we have to think about joy. Okay, so he wants us to have joy. He wants us to have abundance. He tells us as part of the blessings of Deuteronomy 28 that we're supposed to be able to live an abundant and joyful life. Okay? If we turn it into a sort of an ascetic life, then I think we're missing the whole point. It's kind of like the person who says, well, I work for a living. Okay, but do you spend so much of your focus on the work that you actually have time for the living part? So you work so that you can have time living. But if all you're doing is working, because some people do that. They work 60, 80 hours a week, and all they focus on is on work, and there is no living. There's eating, sleeping, and working. So don't tell me you work for a living, you just work. Okay, because the work for a living means I work so that I have also time and ability to live. Okay, so Yeshua says, I came so that you could have life and life more abundantly. And so it's absolutely appropriate in balance for us to have those things that we enjoy that are not against the word. So there's music that you can find that's not messianic necessarily, that could be perfectly fine. Of course, it's a little tough because you have lyrics and things that are really challenging. There's books you can read. There's movies you can watch. There's all kinds of things that are enjoyable. In other words, we as human beings have in common several things that we all find enjoyable. So types of things. We enjoy playing games, things that are considered games where, you're doing things as groups or individually and gets a little competitive, whatever it is. And, there's games that we play. And there's things that we like to watch. There's things we like to listen to. There's things that we like to do that we enjoy. And the reason why you find massive amounts of people doing them is because we seem to, as human beings, like to do things that are enjoyable. There's nothing wrong with enjoying yourself. It's really interesting that you brought this up because my father-in-law, one day somebody had bought a copy for us as a gift of the book of Matthew, the movie. And I don't know if you've ever seen it. I'm not a big fan of it because it's basically the NIV put to video. Okay, so it's literally word for word. The only talking in the entire movie is the scripture. So if somebody's speaking, you see them speaking, or if it's something that's narrated, you hear it narrated. But the only talking in the movie is word for word from Matthew 1:1 to the end of Matthew 28. All right? Now, having said that, my father-in-law got mad at the movie at first because he was raised just as you were talking about, because there were some scenes with no talking where Yeshua and the disciples are basically having fun, playing in a babbling brook or creek. And he's laughing and they're splashing each other and they're having a great time. Oh no, Messiah never would have done that. Really? I bet you he had more fun than any of us ever had fun. I'm sure that when Yeshua was in the flesh and he had joy and he was filled with it and he had it overflowing and he laughed and he had exuberance. All of that stuff. What's the point? Would you do all of this just so we could be very austere and quiet and only study 24/7 and that's what the kingdom's going to be like? There's going to be abundant joy. We're going to laugh harder than we've ever laughed. We're going to feel more joy than we've ever felt. And so there are things that are okay to do that bring joy, like eating a piece of chocolate. I know there are people that are not for that. I'm okay with you not being for that. I won't judge you. Oh, I'm sorry. Don't judge me as I'm eating the chocolate. No, I don't eat that much, but no. She said I'll take their portion. I only eat it in small amounts just because it overloads me. I love it though in my small amounts. But it's okay to enjoy, certain foods, you may really enjoy that. Certain music, you may enjoy that. Certain things, movies, you may enjoy them. Certain activities, you may enjoy that. So good, go and enjoy yourself. But don't do it where you're not giving him his time. You know what he wants? He wants your best 10% at least. Not your 24/7 necessarily, where all you do is only do things like study. But give him that best quality 10%. And then he says, pray always. What does that mean? It means to, in all that you're doing, when you're enjoying everything every activity, that you're aware of that vertical relationship. Being vertically connected, and while you're enjoying yourself, say, praise Abba, I've got this thing that makes me happy and it's joyful and it's okay to do because it's not against his word. It's not an unclean thing to do or an inappropriate thing to do. Because you all already know there's things that you shouldn't be doing. I'm not talking about things like, well, dancing is wrong and all the stuff that you got out of mainstream Christianity. I'm talking about that, there's dancing and there's dirty dancing. And there's a lot of in between what we do here in the congregation and what some people are doing in the nightclubs. And they call both of them dancing. And so we have to be aware that there are things that are obvious. And by the way, you can use your own conscience also to say, look, if it doesn't feel right to me, you shouldn't be doing it. If it feels right to you, you may want to get counsel to make sure it is right. But if it doesn't feel right to you, it's okay not to do it. You don't have to force yourself to do something you're not comfortable with. But it's absolutely, I would have to say, this whole thing that we're doing is going to be considered wicked thoughts if it doesn't lead to abundant joy and abundant life. Because in other words, it'll be leading to a vain, worthless effort. If everything Abba has taught you does not lead to shalom, contentment, and joy, and peace, and abundant life, not abundance meaning physical wealth, I'm just saying abundant life where you feel satisfied and blessed, where you can actually have eaten and are satisfied and praise him for it, then there's no point to it. We're not doing this to avoid a burning hell or to go up in a cloud and strum a harp. I mean, I don't know how that ever motivated anybody. I just don't. Okay? I mean, I get trying not to maybe end up in some sort of burning place. I could see how that could motivate, but that wouldn't be enough. Well, what's in it, though? What's the good part of it? Sitting there strumming. No, it just wouldn't work for me. But he says, I'm going to give you a life where there's no more crying, no more tears, no more stress, nothing to make you afraid, where you can have joy to overflowing. Joy. So enjoy yourself in appropriate ways. Is that okay? Okay. We'll work on it, right? Well, listen, it's not easy to, look, if you've had a finger that was bent your whole life, and there was somebody who was able to, like a chiropractor was able to finally get it adjusted, guess what's probably going to happen a couple of days later? It's going to bend right back. It's not going to take to being fixed instantaneously. So if you've had a mindset that's been one way for year after year, 30, 40, 50 years, well, guess what? It's not going to change so easily. But you got to start by changing your thought to realize, oh, the thought is I can do this, it's okay. That doesn't mean that you're going to latch right on and be able to just run with that immediately. But it's a thought now, and that thought can eventually take roots and to manifest eventually into an attached desire to it and an action. And next thing you find yourself having a great time in an appropriate way. In an appropriate way. All right.
I had something I basically wanted to run by you just to make sure it's kosher. So basically what we're talking about in this entire what are you thinking is not just simply the what are you thinking part, but where you're setting yourself in a course to go to. I frequently think of things when it comes to Torah like a journey. And in essence, I'm equating the thoughts in this case to steps that you're taking along the way toward that journey. And if you keep making the right number of steps in that direction, it turns into desire and then habit and then all along down the line.
Yeah.
One of the things I was noticing about any kind of journey, though, especially a journey you've never been through that area, is that you need a guide. And I was starting to notice a correlation of you, in essence, you as you follow Messiah, you being our guide, our trailblazer, and following your lead. And I can bring out an example of that from my life where I have almost deathly afraid of going to anybody remotely psychological minded or anything like that. I've heard and seen too much abuses of that in the past. And when I was dealing with some stuff on my end, you recommended that I needed to go and get something evaluated just to make sure that things were kosher, or that there wasn't anything extra hindering me. And I didn't like it at first, obviously, but I submitted to it and did it, and I ended up reaping a lot of benefits from it. Not only that, but getting confirmation about what you were already telling me was stuff that they were telling me later on. Right. So I just wanted to encourage anybody that is having problems trusting leadership and their counsel. They're there to guide us. It's like any wagon train on its way to the Wild West. You've got to have that scout and that lead that's going to trailblaze for you and let you know that, hey, there's stuff along the way that you got to watch out for. And you can't allow this mindset to get you off on a boony trail going this direction. And you can't, no, that's a mirage over there. It's not an oasis. And
Amen.
So those kind of things.
Okay, let me take what Dawid said, and I want to just kind of launch on in a direction with that. Two things. One is this. Number one, because I'll start with the second thing he said, and then we'll get to the first thing he said, which is, I think it's a very good thing for all of you. If you know somebody is a leader, a teacher, someone you can counsel with, obviously I'll use myself as the example because I'm the one that's here, right? It would probably be good for you to talk to some people, now listen to me clearly, who are in regular counsel with me, not who talk to me once or something and then have some conclusion or opinion about how good a counselor I am. But go ask some of the people that you talk to. By the way, do you counsel with Rabbi at all? And how has that gone? And get that feedback like he just gave you and see, is his common or uncommon as far as the thought process results and how he feels. Talk to others and say, well, have you interacted? This is part of your vetting process of someone you may consider discipling with or getting counsel from. Why don't you ask some people, by the way, but ask them, well, I don't want to, have you ever counseled Rabbi? Well, yeah, I talked to him once. Well, that may or may not, because some people don't always have the best experience the first time because after all, they may not hear what they want and then they walk away and never come back. But go to somebody who's counseled on a fairly regular basis, who's actually gone more than once, 4 or 5 times with a question or an issue, and say, what were your results like? How do you feel about the way this man counsels? And then you'll have testimonies and you'll have data to help you with your decision. Of course, the best way is for you to do it yourself and just try it. That would really be your best way to do it. Now, the first thing he said, which is interesting, which I didn't really mention, but one of the best ways to apply the thought, desire, action, habit, destiny model is to start backwards. Where is it you want to go? That's your destiny. Okay? Because you're already headed somewhere, even whether you picked it or not. Why don't you pick one? Pick a destiny. Where are you trying to go? Now, we all have a destiny we've chosen. We want to get into the kingdom, so that's our one common destiny. All right? So then we have to say, okay, what habits are necessary to get to the destiny? Okay, what actions have to be taken to develop those habits? What desires would I have to be to take those actions? And what thoughts would I have to start the whole process? Reverse engineer it. Go backwards. Okay? Like I said, nobody got to be a millionaire without first deciding they wanted to be one. Of course, unless they woke up one day and realized they inherited it or something. What I'm saying is, those who worked for it and made any effort to it, that's what they wanted to do. Their goal was to make a lot of money, to be wealthy financially, physically with the wealth, the dollar signs. By the way, every one of you has the ability to choose that and do it too if you really wanted to. You would have to do this. You would say, okay, I want to be a millionaire. What habits would I have to be one? What habits do millionaires have? Okay, by the way, there's a book called 7 Habits of Highly Effective People that would help you along that path. But there are books written about the millionaire mindset and other things like that. Actions. Okay, what actions do people take that are millionaires to get to what do they do to get to where they are? You know, every motivational speaker out there that has ever told you about their study of the wealthy and successful can tell you that they all did pretty much the same exact things. It's a duplicatable process. And they'll also tell you, and if you've ever heard wealthy people, successful doesn't always mean money, talk, they'll say, if you do what I did, guess what? You'll get the same results. Isn't that what Yeshua said? Follow me. If you do what I do, you'll get the result that I got, which is to be in the kingdom and be called well done, my son who I'm well pleased with, et cetera, et cetera. I was going to say the well done thing, but with him, he said, this is my son who I'm well pleased. Don't you want to hear the Father say that about you? Yeshua says, no problem. Do what I did. Imitate me. If you imitate whoever has the destiny that you're looking for and you do the things that they did, you'll end up where they ended up. That's just the way it works. Okay, if I want to bake a cake that you've made, let's say Christina's made a cake and I loved it, and she gives me the recipe. Guess what I'm going to end up with probably? A cake that tastes like hers. If I do the recipe exactly the way she does. So it's duplicatable. This is your recipe. This is your formula. If you choose the right thoughts, attach enough desire to it, the actions will then come, which will develop habits, develop a destiny. That's the formula. But you get to choose. Choose your destiny. I mean, do you like not having, enough money at the end of the month? Well, choose a destiny where you have plenty of money at the end of the month. And then figure out, okay, what habits do I have to do that? Well, I might have to stop spending like a crazy person, and I may have to actually make more money. Okay, and then what are the actions that do that? And then what are the desires it has to be? I have to really want this bad enough, and then what thought processes do I need to have? What do I have to be thinking about? What do I need to meditate on? What thoughts will get me there? This is not rocket science. This is very basic, simple stuff. But you know what? You weren't taught this in public school, were you? But this is how things really work. It's that simple. Now, I learned this because I studied all of those personal development and success trainers and all the wealthy and successful people. I studied them since I was like 13, 14. I was a young teenager. And somehow my father had some of this stuff, and I grabbed a hold of it, and I just drank it all in. And I've told you the story. I'm standing here before you doing not exactly, but exactly what I dreamed when I was a young teenager, and my brothers and my family all knew it. I wanted to be like those motivational speakers. I wanted to be standing in front of people with a microphone, giving them the tools to positively impact their lives. I'm doing exactly that. I just didn't picture it being this. So I wasn't specific enough, I guess, but my destiny that I wanted was to be doing exactly what I'm doing. This is what I always wanted to do. I wasn't always doing it. Didn't start doing this until I was in my 30s, my mid to late 30s. I tried a lot of other things on the way to this, but always my dream was, how can I someday stand in front of a bunch of people and give them things, information, and tools that will positively impact their lives? So that was my destiny that I've always wanted. And I studied to know what the habits were of people that did it and what actions did they take. And boy, did I have a lot of desire behind it. And I held on to that thought of my wanting to do this. And I watched guys like the Tony Robbins of the world, and I could name like 67 other motivational speakers, Les Brown and, Zig Ziglar and all the guys from the Carnegie guys, etc. This stuff is all, you study it. Hey, you want to reach the kingdom? Study the word that gets you to the kingdom. Okay? This is the book that gets you to that result. You want to be a great painter? Why don't you go study some of the great painters and the courses that are out there to learn how to paint? You want to be a great carpenter? Go find yourself a great carpenter and study under them. You want to be a great anything? Go find somebody that's great at it and say, how do you do this? How'd you get to be great at this? You want to be a great parent? You probably don't necessarily want to go back and look at yours. A lot of us don't have great parents to look back at, but you can find some and say, hey, how do you do that? Okay, find someone with the results you're looking for and duplicate them. Do what they do, or do what they did to get there. That's what this book gives you completely. The book is telling you this is how to get to where Yeshua is. That's why I had the teaching, right? What did Yeshua do? Well, do what he did. He was completely Torah submissive, Torah observant, and he walked in the fruit. Love, joy, peace, patience, etc. By the way, the second one of those is joy. And it didn't say that he studied 24/7 either. He had fun. I'm sure he had a lot of fun. All right, any more questions? Okay, Tricia?
I really appreciate what you just said, but with the concept of being great, like for example,
Okay, instead of but, we'll say however.
however,
Got to break that but habit. I appreciate what you said, but however is not a whole lot better, but at least it stops you from saying but. Okay, in addition, you'd like to ask something else.
in addition to,
Right.
you've got the concept of being great and understanding the financial matters. But then you also have to have balance, like for those who want to be great in their spiritual walks, in the power of the way the Creator has, being a tzaddik, or Abraham. Although he's one of the he's a great, but yet he was a provider, and there has to be a balance, so that it goes back to the mindset. I have to allow what you just said about striving to change my thinking there. Because there's a wrestling of wanting to be something great spiritually in the concept of understanding the word, but yet not, quote unquote, chasing the financial matters and allowing that to be. And where does that work?
I think you explained it to yourself. I mean, you just have to find balance. You have to have balance with it. Okay, monitor the amount of time and effort you're putting into both. It's a balance thing. Same thing I was answering Shira's question. It's simply a balance problem, okay? I easily could have been very financially wealthy and had times when I was doing very well, but I put in 40, 80, 100 hours into things, okay? And you can easily do that, and that's a balance problem. Okay, you have to know the amount of time you have and to maximize the hours of that time without taking away the time from other things. I'll give you an example. When I was working years ago, I was working at a resort, and I was talking to somebody at the resort, and the lady I was talking to was getting some sort of treatment at the resort, and I was asking how she was doing. She said, "I'm doing great, but I'm a little concerned." I said, "What are you concerned about?" She says, "My husband is down by the pool with my daughter." I said, "Why is that concerning?" He goes, "They don't even really know each other because he works 100 hours a week, and I'm hoping they're doing okay because she never sees him." And this was people who were like mega millionaires. These are rich people at a rich resort, okay? And so I'm thinking, that's out of balance. Why would your husband think that it was more important to make his millions than to have a relationship with his daughter and with you? Okay, so yes, you must maintain balance. Now, he could have made plenty of money, maybe not as much, and maintain balance. But also you have to decide, what is the actual goal? Do you need, I don't think I would need $1 million to be happy. Not so much to say happy, to buy all the things I need to spend money on, let's put it that way. I think I could have all of my physical needs met on a whole lot less than $1 million. So the point is, where is the balance is in where you start the destiny goal. Is your destiny goal to have enough money to basically do what you want when you want without having to worry about how much it costs? See, that was always my financial goal, destiny goal. When I was starting out, was I wanted to be able to go where I wanted, do what I want, and purchase what I wanted to purchase without having to ask how much. If you ask how much, it's too expensive. In other words, if you have to ask how much it is, now, of course, if you're asking because you just want to make sure, am I going to buy it from you or from you, because you want to look for a bargain, that's different. But if you're asking how much and how much is going to affect whether you buy it or not, then you probably really can't afford it, okay? And so I wanted to get to that place where I could get to. Now, of course, my goals have shifted, because right now I don't care how much we have, as long as I can pay my bills and be able to do his work. So that's a whole different place. But the place was at one time where all my goal was whatever dollar amount, and I don't have a need to buy a lot of things, but I would love to be able to say, I need a new car, or I need a new TV. I can just go and get one and not have to worry about, well, can I afford that? I don't have to worry about, checking my balance in my bank account on a regular basis to make sure I didn't bounce something. And so you could strive or put effort in. Okay, your goal can be to put the effort in to make enough money so that you don't have financial challenges and stresses. And you could put in a full week's proper work, or maybe even 2 jobs temporarily if it's short term, with the goal and a destiny that you're striving towards, or you're making an effort towards. When I say striving, I'm meaning it in the secular way, not the Christianese way. Okay, that striving is wasting your time. But when you put the effort in, you have to always maintain your balance. Without balance, you're going to miss the whole point. It's like the people that are out there who will beat you in the face with their understanding of Torah, missing the fact that you have to have the fruit of the Spirit, otherwise you're not doing it right. So if they're not balanced, they're keeping the commandments as strictly as they can, but there's no love, joy, peace, patience, and all that other stuff, meekness, gentleness, kindness. Where's the balance? See, everything has to have balance. Okay? All right? Everything has to have balance. Look, if you're scratching your beard on the left side only, or on the right side, you have to also scratch it on the other side to give you balance. Yeah, to be centered, just go right up the middle like this. It's good. Do you understand what I'm saying? I posted that part of a Facebook post yesterday. Manny filmed me real quick on a live thing. But Shabbat is part of that balance, right? Shabbat is giving us a one day to help restore balance. Because you know what? If you had other goals, athletic, artistic, financial, whatever it is, relational, with people, any kind of other goals, and those things were really important to you and you were really putting in the effort, if you didn't have that commanded day, you would never take it off. I love those hypocrite Christians. I'm not picking on all of them. The ones that say this word are the hypocrites. When they say to me, well, I don't have to worship Saturday. I can worship any day. And my first thing to do is like, and when do you do it then? Because they don't. They're trying to defend why they don't keep Shabbat. But they're making a claim, well, I don't have to do Saturday. I can worship any day. I says, okay, so which one do you do? Because they don't even go on Sunday. They do nothing. The ones who make these claims, the ones who get in my face. Okay? Well, we're supposed to worship every day. Yeah, you are. Every day you should be giving him attention. But the thing is, don't be a hypocrite. You know that if you were not commanded to take this time, you wouldn't do it. Now, let me rephrase that. Now that you've done it a long time, you'd still do it because you know how great it is. But you would never have started doing it unless he told you had to. You would have had other things you would have used that time to do to pursue other destiny issues. Does that make sense? Are we agreed? All right? So this is part of your balance. Your festivals are part of adding more days of balance. You got 52 of these, but then he adds you another bunch more to give you even more balance. You're so out of balance in the world that he needs to give you 2 full weeks to get away from all of that to find balance. One for in the fall and one in the spring. Because it's not enough to have 1 day resets. You need twice a year, you need a full week reset. This is the way he understands it. So again, this has to do with balance and bringing things into balance. All right? Because otherwise, just like anything else, if you're out of balance, you're going to crash, you're going to fall, you're going to topple over. Whatever it is, out of balance means that you're not going to be stable and strong. It's just easy to knock you over, or you will fall over or something. And so, you could also use the idea if your tires aren't balanced, your car tends to pull in a direction. Well, guess what? Out of balance, you may pull in a direction you don't really want to end up in. If your life is out of balance, you may be pulling more and more towards that side, in that direction. So no problem pursuing, I use the word being great at something, being successful. I like that word better. No problem being excellent and hitting high levels of success in any area, provided it's not at the expense of your balance, of staying Yeshua-centered, Torah-centered, Yahweh-focused. Does that make sense? All right, where's the mic?
Charles Hughes says, if yoke is considered discipleship, Then what is the yoke being discussed in Acts 15:10? Why then do you put God to the test by putting a yoke?
Say it one more time.
Why then do you put God to the
Start
test
with
by
if
putting a
yoke is discipleship.
If yoke is considered discipleship, then what is the yoke being discussed in Acts 15:10?
Okay, so again, it says, now then, why do you try Elohim by putting a yoke on the neck of the taught ones, which neither our fathers nor we were able to bear? So now he's saying, the same as Yeshua, he says, take off that other yoke and put on my yoke. He says, this is not against being yoked. He says, but why are you trying to put on a yoke that our forefathers didn't do? It's not a yoke that they were interested in. See, this is where we're starting to put man's imposition of things. This is man-made religiosity, we'll call it. In other words, traditions that become treated as if they're Torah and other burdens that become treated like they're Torah. This is yoking or discipling. That's not what the forefathers were doing. That's what he's talking. It's not that yoke is a problem. He says, why are you trying to put on this particular type of yoke? So it's the type or the nature of that yoke that's the problem, not the yoking itself. So no problem there at all, David. That was Charles David used, right? That was David. Okay, David, no problem. Yoke is not the problem. It's the kind of yoke. Okay? It's like worshiping Elohim is not a problem. Lots of people do it and all kinds of religions do it. But which one and how they do it can be a problem. Does that make sense? So that's the key here. It's the type of yoke. This is a yoke that was not the one that the forefathers were able to bear. This is not a yoke that they were dealing with. Yoke means what? Teaching and instruction. There's a problem with this teaching. He's saying you're trying to impose a teaching, a curriculum, so to speak, that is not appropriate. All right, next question.
From Corey Stansbury. You have said that we sin because we like to sin or that we want to. How does this equate to what Paul has said in Romans 7, verses 14 to 25?
Okay. Well, that's exactly it right there. And Romans agrees with me. So here's the thing. All right, first of all, let's be clear. I corrected myself and said it's not that you want to sin, because sin is the transgression of the law. It's not that you want to sin. Whatever the sin is, you want to do that particular thing that is sin. Okay? And I know I said it the first time. I said, well, you sin because you want to sin. No, you don't want to sin. None of us wants to sin. Whatever it is that is the sin, that's what we want. The actual action itself, that's the thing we want to do. So Paul says here, for we know that the Torah is spiritual, but I am fleshly, sold under sin. For what I work, I know not, and for what I wish, I do not practice, but what I hate, that I do. Okay, let's be careful now. I also said that you don't want to sin, right? You don't want to break the law. But you still like the thing, you desire it, you enjoy it. There's something about it that appeals to you. So you have this love-hate thing. You want to do it because you're drawn to it, you desire it. Yet up here, you still have the thought going, but that makes me a wretched sinner. And I hate feeling like that. Well, you know what? When you hate feeling like that more than you desire to do it, you'll stop. Paul's saying, I still have that problem. I don't practice the right things. What I hate to do, I still do it. He says there, back in verse 19, he says, for that which is good I do, I wish to do, and I do not do, and the evil that I do not wish to do, I do. Why? Because his heart wasn't right yet. We're still human beings. We always are struggling with that problem. When you attach enough hate, disgust, and lack of desire and lack of interest to the thing that you're still doing that you shouldn't do, you'll stop. Everybody I know that quit smoking got to that point and just stopped. They didn't use a patch. They didn't use a vaping thing. I'm not picking on any of you to do any of that stuff. I'm just saying is the people that quit. But they didn't quit by trying to quit. When you try to quit, it's because you really don't want to, but you know you should. And that's why it never works. They quit when they didn't want it anymore. When wanting it was more loathsome to them than not wanting it. Okay? So they finally attached enough pain and suffering in their head and in their hearts to doing the thing they shouldn't be doing, that they said, I'm finally done. And guess what? They've no problem quitting. Because people say to me, well, I've tried to quit 5 times. Well, but that's why you failed, because you tried to quit. When you're ready to quit, you'll quit. Stop trying, quit. Well, I sound like Yoda. There is no try, there's just do. When 600 years old you are, look as good you will not. Okay. And do my Yoda. Okay? Understand that that's what Paul is saying. He's saying, I still have things like all the rest of you that I still like somewhere in me, not like intellectually. Let's really be clear here. What we're talking about is not here in your head. Okay, let's be open about something. I'll take something really easy and open. We take something like pornography. Every guy that I counsel that struggles with this hates that they struggle with it. So it's not up here, it's the problem. There's a part that's drawn to it. Do you understand what I'm saying? And until they hate it in here enough, they're going to just try to quit all the time and not be able to quit. Same thing with some of you who are addicted to sugar and junk. Guess what? Up here, you get so mad at yourself after you sat down to have a small piece of cake and look up and half the cake is gone. And you go, how did that happen? And then you get all mad at yourself. And you hate that you did that. That's all up here. When it's down here, when it's in the heart, when it's in the desire, when you desire to not do it more than you desire to do it, you'll stop doing it. And you'll quit what you need to quit. So Paul's simply saying, I know what you're struggling with. That which I wish to do, I don't do. That part he's talking about, that which I wish in my head to do, I don't do because I don't have enough desire attached to it. Remember, here's the formula. Thought, I wish. That's his thought. I wish to do something. Next thing is desire. I don't have enough desire, so guess what happens? No action. Thought without desire doesn't lead to action. So his thought didn't have a strong enough desire. Without the desire, there's no action. Does that make sense? What if you have a contrary desire? I have a thought, but my desire is in the opposite direction. Which thing do you think you're going to do? What you thought or what you desired? You're going to do what you desired. So that's why he says, and that which I hate, I do. Well, he hates it up in his head. He doesn't really hate it yet in his heart. If his desire was, I hate this thing, I'm never doing it again, it's loathsome, because I promise you, if let's say, for example, I'll use my daughter, for example, she hates onions, or at least she used to hate them. If she knew there was any onions in food, there was no way she was eating it. Just no way. If she saw an onion, it was done. All of you have things in your life like that. There are things that you absolutely will not eat or will not do because you just do not have any interest. It's loathsome to you. There's no appeal. As a matter of fact, it repels you. It's repulsive. Am I right? Well, when you feel that way about this thing that up here that you're repulsed by, when you feel that way here, it'll be the same as those other things. There's no way you're going to do it. There's no way. You're just not going to do it. There's things already that you treat that way. But that's because there's harmony, there's congruence between your head and your heart. When the head and heart are out of whack, the heart wins every time. The head can win occasionally by overriding, by brute force. But that takes brute force. Generally, the heart wins. The head loses. And that's all Paul's talking about here. So hopefully that makes some sense. Robert? We got a lot of mini teachings going on in here.
From Amy.
This is the stuff I've always wanted to teach, by the way. Because this is the stuff I learned for the 30 years before I got into ministry. But here it is in the book. So I got an excuse to teach it. So you understand why you do what you do. So that's all these other teachers are teaching from a secular point of view, which actually matches the Bible. For you to understand why you do what you do and why you don't do what you should be doing. So you need that technology to understand this. It's a heart-head disconnect. Desire is stronger in the one direction than the other. You're going to do whichever one you desire more. Go ahead.
From Amy, your mention of the other teachers made her think of the developing the character of Yeshua, part 1, and how we feed either the tree of life or the tree of the knowledge of good and evil.
Amen. Aren't we redoing that one? Are we remastering that one? All right, that one's the next one. By the way, Marty's doing a fabulous job of remastering the older teachings that had sound issues. And you're also putting little slides up and stuff, little tech. And so he's remastering them to look like the new teachings. So we just posted the Millennium and Kingdom. Okay, so that's been remastered. You can now pull that up. And the next one he's working on is developing the character of Yeshua. Pursuit of Righteousness will come out this week. Pursuit of Righteousness is coming out this week. Okay, so there's nothing changed on it in terms of the information, but it's going to be much more appealing in the presentation. And for all those that had sound issues, the software I used recorded it out of sync so that if you were listening in mono, you heard nothing. Okay, if you listen to a headset or through speakers, you could hear it, but like the two channels canceled each other out. So Marty's fixed these things, and he's also added a lot of his normal tweaks to it and touches, and so it looks really good. So that one is coming up next. But yeah, in developing the character of Yeshua, part 1, the whole understanding, you may want to just go back and listen just for that part where I skip past the whole, where I do the State of the Union address, or the State of the Body address. But then after that, I get into this 2 understandings of the 2 trees, the understanding about the 2 trees. Very important. Okay, by the way, at the end of that is where we talk about that a selfless person cannot be offended. It's impossible. If you're selfless, you need self to be, well, I'm offended. See, that's it. You need to be I to be offended. Selfless can't be, well, selfless is offended. Well, how could that be possible? I'm offended. See, I can get offended. If I get the I out of there, remove that I, remove the plank out of the I, I can't get offended. Okay, get rid of the I, there's nothing to offend. Yeshua didn't have an I problem, so he wasn't offended when they were spitting on him and scourging him and everything else. He said, forgive them, Father, they don't know what they're doing. Okay, Robert?
David Botwick Rice, would 2 Kephas 1, verses 5 through 7 be a good example, along with Deuteronomy 10:12, of the correct process of getting our thoughts in order for the correct results according to Torah and Yeshua's mindset?
Okay, 2 Peter 1, which is going to go into where I talked to you about many times how the teacher's job is to stir up by remembrance, okay? For this reason, brothers, verse 10, all the more do your utmost to make firm your calling and choosing. For if you do these matters, you shall never stumble at all. For in this way an entrance into the everlasting kingdom of our Master and Savior Yeshua shall be richly supplied to you. Okay, the idea, of course, being doing your utmost to make firm. So if you do your utmost to make firm, you won't stumble. You stumble when you are not weak. When you're not firm, but you're weak in your standing. If you've made it firm, you don't stumble. Okay? And so I intend, this is the teacher's role here for all teachers. Their intention should be to remind everyone again and again of the things that they should have already known, that they've been established in. Okay? And that's the role of the teacher. All right?
Johnny asked, wants to know if she understood right. Jeremiah 5, verses 4 and 5. Poor in Scripture, is this the same as no knowledge in Torah? And a whore is like serving other gods, or temptations like smooth talk?
Okay, ask the question part again. In Jeremiah 4 and 5, verses 4 and 5, is what? Is
poor in Scripture
right.
The same as no knowledge in Torah? And then is the whore like serving other gods? And is temptations like smooth talk?
Yes to the second one, not probably to the first one. Okay, here it says, these are only the poor. They have been foolish, for they have not known. These are ones who are choosing to be poor. They've chosen poverty. Okay? These are the ones who've made a choice not to have that relationship. They've had the information, but they've chosen to still sit there. That's the problem. Okay? In other words, the person, and you may know these people very well, you may even know them so well, you look at them in the morning in the mirror, the person that knows what to do and what they need to do, and yet they don't do it anyway. You know what you need to do to fix your problem, you know how to do it, but yet you don't do it. That's what this is, the poor here. This is almost like, oh, poor them. They know what to do. Why would they just do it already? Why won't you do it? I mean, it's like poor and pathetic. And they're also being referred to as foolish. See, now the poor that we normally talk about, like the poor in spirit, the meek, they're not foolish. These are fools. They've known and chosen not to. Okay, so it's a different poor. Okay, but as far as the whore, yes, this is all that would lure you and tempt you to that which is not what you need to be doing.
Okay, Stephen Waffle has the question, is not having purpose affect our desire, our directing our desires?
Absolutely. I mean, it's not the only thing, but yes. I mean, if you don't have a purpose, then desires tend to kind of just run amok. If you have a purpose, though, then you're focusing your desire on the purpose. So that's why it's really good, actually, to reverse engineer this and start with your destiny that you want. And then you can build back and realize that you have to have certain desires to get there. Because otherwise, desires just randomly are going to just pop up situationally. I'll give you an example. I'm happily married. I'm using this as an example. I am happily married. But let's say I'm happily married, and I'm walking around, and I have no thought to commit adultery. I don't have the singlest thought in my mind to commit adultery. I haven't thought of anybody else. But all of a sudden, somebody just walks by, and now a thought hits me. I hadn't had that thought before, but maybe nothing had come up to get my interest. Maybe even haven't considered that thought before. But now I have a thought. And now that thought then has to match up with a desire. Do I desire to take that thought and go, but I'm married, no problem, not looking there anymore? Or is the thought going to be matched up with a desire like, I think I might have to figure out a way to have that. So let's understand that, the destiny. So if I first choose the destiny of, I'm married and I'm going to guard my eyes, and I'm going to make sure that I protect this relationship, then I've already got a desire that kicks in as soon as I notice her. By the way, it's perfectly human male to notice, just like it's human female to notice. That's not the sin and that's not the problem. It's what happens to that thought once you notice. So if that thought then triggers my desire, which is, but my desire is to maintain my covenant with my wife, then that thought gets tossed. And I don't have any place else to go with that thought. See, because I've already got a destiny that I've chosen, and I know the desires that have to match up with that. I have to desire no other in order to have that destiny, which is to live forever only with one person. That's my wife. That's it. Okay? So now I've chosen to desire her and her only. Okay, so now I see something attractive, but the desire is to match that destiny, then I know what to do with that thought. Well, anything wrong with noticing someone that's attractive? It's like I've always said, I remember hearing some guy do this teaching one time, and I've used it over and over again. There's no problem if you're a guy driving down the road in the summer and seeing a beautiful woman in a sundress on the corner and going, wow, that's a beautiful woman. The problem is when you've driven around the block 4 times to see her again. You would not be a man if you didn't notice, but you're also not being a man the way you're supposed to be if you go riding around the corner 5 times and you're married. Now, of course, if the woman on the corner is your wife, stop and pick her up and let her in the car. Don't keep driving around the block. I don't think I've ever said that part before. I just made that up. We got to have some humor. Okay, what else you got, Robert? Because she'll be looking at you like this at some point, like, are you done? Well, I've just noticed you and I'm driving around the block thinking, boy, you look good. Well, it would be nice if you stopped and picked me up and put me in the car.
My grandpa used to say, you can't keep a bird from landing on your head, but you sure can keep it from building a nest there.
There you go. Well, thank you, Marty. That was good. All right? Listen, ladies, don't get mad if you catch your husband actually notice, like, for a second somebody. That happens. You don't have to beat him up for it. Of course, if they stare at them like and just keep looking and staring, that's a different problem. Give them a kick or a punch or whatever you want. That's fine with me. The shin is a good place, not a problem. Okay, but if somebody happens to walk by and they just catch it for a second, don't be mad at them. That proves they're still alive and they've got a pulse and, it's okay. Ladies, you notice guys too. Don't even play that game. I know you do. You're just a little bit more subtle about it. But you do. That's not the problem. The problem is the thought came. The problem isn't the thought. What do you do now? Do you dwell on that thought by just keeping on staring? Because now you're thinking about, and you're thinking about it. Noticing and thinking about is totally different thing. I noticed a pretty woman. Now I'm thinking about her, and I'm just staring at her, and I'm thinking about her. That's different than noticing her. Does that make sense? Same thing with any sin. You can notice it. You can be aware of something that's tempting you. Oh, there's something I could do that's wrong. You became aware. I noticed. I am aware of it. But now what your desire is going to determine what you do with that thought. Are you going to keep thinking about it? Or are you going to toss it? Are you going to act upon it? Or are you going to get rid of it? I'll give you an example. When I met my wife, well, actually, right before I met her, we were at the first day of Unleavened Bread at a congregation service in Florida. I hadn't met her yet. And there was probably, close to 1,000 people at this thing. It was a big gathering of a lot of different church areas that were part of the same church that all came together, And first day of Unleavened Bread, and I saw a beautiful young blonde woman walking by. I noticed her. But then I also noticed that she was holding the hand of a 3-year-old that looked just like her. And so I said, tossed that thought, and went on with my day. Because my thought was, she's married. Okay? Now, of course, it turned out it wasn't even her kid. It was her niece. But the niece looked more like her than her mother. She looked just like my wife. But that was an example. What I'm saying is I was single. I was hoping in this big crowd of people I might meet somebody of interest. And then I saw her. I noticed. Got my attention. But that thought lasted about 3 seconds when I noticed also there was a little thing attached to her. That wasn't just a little thing. It looked exactly like her. And so my thought was, she's here with her family, and I didn't give her another thought. Okay, that's what I'm giving you an example of how this could work. All right? I already knew I'm not going to deal with anybody who's married. There wasn't even a desire at all ever to interact with a married woman. And so as soon as that thought was like, oh, I think she's married, move on. Move on. That makes sense? Now how we can deal with things. All right? Now, had I been of a different mindset or a different heart, I might have looked at her and trying to think, I wonder if I can get her away from whoever she's with. I wonder how I can pursue this. Maybe he doesn't deserve her. I could rationally lie to myself any which way I wanted. And I would be in trouble, wouldn't I? But I can convince myself, just like you can convince yourself. Anything else, Robert? Okay. What was that? We went over 400 today. Awesome. What was that? Including your husband, right? Someone's like, so Tom was on there. Hi, Tom. All right. Everybody was on there. Okay. See, now we figured out how to have more people on there, have them be sick. No, that's not what we want. Kidding, just kidding. All right, well, we've actually also set a record. We've almost gone an hour over here. So let's go ahead and get the children and close this up. Shabbat Shalom! Shavua Tov! We love you.